I'd like to bring this meeting to order for the Historic Preservation Commission for Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. The first item on our agenda is a roll call.
Hartman. Jensen.
Here.
McManus. Solomon. Here. Stazen.
Here.
Zinke. Here. Zelmer.
Here. We have a quorum. Okay, the next item on our agenda is approval of meeting minutes of July 19th, 2022. Does anyone have any changes, revisions to those meeting minutes? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
I motion to approve the minutes of July 19th, 2022.
Very good. Second?
I'll second them.
Okay. I guess all in, could you do a roll call?
Jensen.
Yes.
Solomon. Stazen.
Abstain.
Zinke.
Aye.
Chairman Miller.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the 5-minute field guide, regional connectivity. Say that one.
Thank you, Chairman Zelmer. So last month, I gave you a lot to think about, so I thought that I would be a little bit easier on you this month, because you're still asking questions about last month's 5-minute field guide, some of you. So tonight I want to talk about regional connectivity and also about our roles as commissioners and preservationists. So in particular, I'm going to focus a little bit tonight, very briefly, on Landmarks Illinois' Suburban Preservation Alliance. So we wear many hats as preservationists, and it's always a fine line as to what a commissioner's roles and responsibilities are. Preservationists can be advocates and they can be legislators, but it's important that the two don't get blurred when you're sitting in the position as a commissioner. An advocate is a person or a group of persons who plead or argue in favor of something such as a cause or a policy. In short, they're a supporter or a promoter. Commissioners, on the other hand, are quasi-judicial legislators who are members of a governmental body that affect the rights of individuals by administering decisions equally and fairly in accordance with adopted laws. And that's very important for commissioners to understand. It's not just opinions that we're proffering here when we conduct business, but we're actually following the adopted laws of the City of Geneva and the policies and procedures set forward by the City Council. So again, it's important to understand the difference between an advocate and a legislator. As I've said, sometimes it's a fine line between the two roles. And as I also said, knowing the difference is an important responsibility of every historic preservation commissioner, whether in Geneva or wherever they may serve. One way to learn more about these differences is to attend meetings of your preservation peers and colleagues. We do not operate in a vacuum here in Geneva. There are preservation commissions all across the state of Illinois. One such opportunity I'd like to share with you is Landmarks Illinois Suburban Preservation Alliance, which is a gathering of suburban preservation advocates, commissioners, and professionals. The ad hoc group is co-hosted by Landmarks Illinois as well as a suburban community to highlight preservation successes, efforts, and challenges. It's a very good opportunity to learn how other commissions function and operate and what types of things that they have enacted to make their procedures easier for both themselves and for the public. If any of you are interested, the next gathering is Saturday morning, September 16th at Naperville, Illinois. It's one of the closer Suburban Alliance meetings that has been held in recent years. And if any of you are interested in attending on the commission, you can coordinate with me, and I'd be glad to provide more information and coordinate traveling to or from the meeting. It typically lasts about 2 to 3 hours, starts usually around 9:30 and ends by 1 o'clock. But it is a chance to meet with, like I said, your fellow colleagues in the preservation world, as well as to pick the brains of Landmarks Illinois staff who are represented at the meetings as well. So again, this is one more tool to help you differentiate between being an advocate and a legislator in your role as a commissioner. And that is my 5-minute field guide for this week.
It was a quick 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I went over last time.
Okay. That's a quick 5 minutes. Thank you, Michael. Okay. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing for case number 22055, proposed demolition of 3 structures at 2 contributing properties. Before we open the public hearing, any commissioner must recuse himself or herself, should state that the intention to provide simple declaration, potential conflicts of interest or relationship to applicant, another party of the action, ownership, financial interest in the project, et cetera. No, does anyone need to recuse themselves? If not, okay. I want to call a motion for the hearing to open the public hearing for case number 22055 at 8 Stevens Street. And it's a public hearing to consider demolition of 3 structures and 2 contributing properties. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
I so move.
Okay, can I get a second? And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. The public hearing is open. It is the Historic Preservation Commission's job to conduct this public hearing for case number 22055 to consider the demolition of 3 structures on 2 contributing properties in order to receive testimony in favor of and against the proposed demolition. The procedure will be as follows. First, the preservation planner will describe written items, reports, and plans to be entered into the record. Second, the applicant will present testimony in regards to the request. Third, the Historic Preservation Commission members will have an opportunity to question the applicant. Fourth, the Historic Preservation Commission will receive testimony, citizen testimony in support of and against the proposed demolition, calling for testimony from those who have signed and requested to testify. Citizens attending in person will be recognized ahead of citizens joining remotely. Questions about the nomination may be directed to the petitioner or petitioner's witness. However, as chairman, I will recognize the speaker to maintain order. Questions from the Historic Preservation Commission's process itself may be directed to me. Testimony shall be truthful, concise, and not repetitious. Those in attendance should refrain from audible gestures of support or disapproval of testimony given by the applicant or any other person testifying. Finally, the applicant may provide a conclusion to any of the testimony presented. Prior to closing the public hearing, the commission may solicit expert testimony to evaluate the information provided during the public hearing if deemed necessary. When the commission is satisfied that all testimony has been introduced into the record, the public hearing will be closed tonight or within 45 calendar days of the close of the public hearing. The Historic Preservation will make a recommendation to the City Council in the form of a motion. Okay. Just to go over the testimony proceed.
I'm sorry, that should not be to the city council. The action tonight will be final in the demolition case.
Okay, the demolition will be a final. In order, testimony procedure, in order to give testimony, you must provide your name on the registration sheet located at the entrance to the hearing room and sign in the space provided. By signing the registration sheet, you agree to understand that anything you say will be considered sworn testimony. You affirm to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. When giving testimonies, please come forward to the lectern, speak clearly and slowly, and loudly so the HPC members in the audience and the recording services may hear you. Any citizen wishing to provide testimony must first be sworn in individually before testimony. When begin speaking it by stating your name. If you speak multiple times, please state your name each time for the record. Be concise when presenting your testimony. If your point has already been made, it is not necessary to repeated by the speaker or speakers who may testify. Each of these points is recorded and will be considered by the HPC and as it develops its recommendation. Just to give you, this is the first and only warning that attendees should become disruptive or otherwise unruly. I will seek a motion from the commission to continue the public hearing to another date. You may provide testimony in written form, but such written testimony must be presented to the preservation planner prior to the closing of the hearing. Written testimony will be acknowledged and included in the official record of the proceeding, but will not be read aloud during the public hearing. After the testimony process is completed and everyone wishing to present testimony is spoken, the commission will decide whether it has heard adequate testimony in order to make a decision. If it has, the public hearing will be closed. After the public hearing is concluded, the Historic Preservation Commission will refrain from receiving any additional testimony, either for or against the petition. At this time, I will administer the oath of the people that have signed the registration form and are physically present in the City Council chambers. Anyone wishing to give sworn testimony, ask questions, or cross-examine anyone giving sworn testimony, please stand and raise your right hand, if able, and answer, "I do," to affirm your intent. So if you would please stand if you want to make testimony. Do you swear to affirm that testimony you are about to give is, to the best of your knowledge, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated. Okay. I guess the first item would be to have Michael Lambert do give a presentation about what's in front of us.
Thank you, Chairman Zellmer. First, I want to read into the record that an application was duly filed by the applicant on July 21st, 2022. Pursuant to that submittal, the public hearing was advertised in the Daily Herald and appeared and was published on July 30th, 2022. And we have the record of the mailings that are required by ordinance were sent out in a timely fashion, both notices to adjoining neighbors within 500 feet of the subject property. So we are in compliance with notification. As an introduction, this property is located in the far northeastern corner of both the local Geneva Historic District and the North Geneva Historic District listed in the National Register of Historic Places. To give you a brief key plan, and understanding of the development of the site, this is part of the Geneva Bottling Works, which originated originally on the north side of Stevens Street. As identified in the images up on the upper left corner of this map. The properties actually are in the second phase of the Geneva Bottling Works, which developed on the south side of Stevens Street at the corner of Stevens and River Lane. The south side developed with a number of buildings. This particular building is included in the demolition request, but it was not part of the Geneva Bottling Works. It's a garage on an adjacent property that is now owned by the applicant. The garage was built sometime between 1912 and 1923, was built for the Steves Rogers family, and then converted for use for the Lencioni family when they developed the Blue Goose food market and fruit stand in St. Charles that recently closed this year. The second building on the property, which is not subject to this demolition request, but to give you orientation, was the 1925 building built for Fred Hillquist Contractors, and was used by the Hillquist Company until the early 1930s. The first building built on the south side of Stephen Street, purpose-built for the Geneva Bottling Works, is this building that was started in 1942. It was originally intended to be a one-story building, but mid-construction, they applied to the City Council to modify the building permit and made it a two-story building. This building, again, is for context, but is not one of the buildings being considered for demolition. Shortly after the building I just mentioned was being constructed, they began construction on what it was identified as the warehouse garage later in 1942. This is in the internal portion of the lot that's officially addressed 302 North River Lane, but it is behind the building that faces Stephen Street. This is a simple vernacular utilitarian building, again used as for warehousing and garage storage. And this is one of the properties or one of the buildings that is being considered for demolition. The water bottling works and warehouse building, the large imposing structure with the gable end facing Stevens Street, was built in 1946 to accommodate the expanding water bottling and beverage business that was growing here with Geneva Bottling Works. This building is being proposed for demolition. And then finally, making up the Geneva Bottling Works site on the south side of Stephen Street was the 1948 warehouse and office building, which again is not one of the buildings being considered for demolition. So in summary, the three buildings that are being brought forward this evening for a request for demolition are identified in the packet that you received as buildings A, B, and C, with A being the Steves Rogers Lencioni garage, built between 1912 and 1923. The building B, which is the 1942 garage and warehouse, and building C, which is the 1946 water bottling plant and warehouse. Just to give you images, if you've not been out to the site, these are the existing conditions as of about a month ago. This is the Steves Rogers Lencioni garage, which is actually a combination of two structures that were joined sometime after 1945. The portion facing Stephen Street has an automobile garage bay, and then the larger garage doors where the original delivery truck for the Lencioni Blue Goose Market was stored. The rear portion that you see in the larger picture apparently was some type of storage shed or chicken coop at one time, but it was joined with that intermediate section where the two windows are located between the doorways at some point after 1945. So this is a conglomeration of several buildings. This is two views of the 1942 warehouse and garage building. And this is images of the Geneva Bottling Works warehouse and water bottling plant that was built in 1946. The upper left image shows the building as it appeared in 2018. And the other two images on this slide show the building as appeared in 2022, which you can see there has been some deterioration in the last 4 years, fairly significant deterioration. To emphasize the amount of deterioration that has occurred, these are views of the left images of the south side of the water bottling plant, and the right image is the west side of the water bottling plant. So that is a brief introduction to the property. And at this point, I believe Chairman Zellmer would be appropriate to ask the applicant, Mr. Joe Stanton, to come forward.
If you would come forward, Mr. Stanton.
I'm Joe Stanton. I'm speaking on behalf of McConaughey Partners. I'm going to give you an overview of the Bottling Works business and site. The Bottling Works site consisted of 5 buildings. The main building along River Lane is about 35,000 square feet, and 4 supporting buildings. The support buildings consisted of the 2 cinder block buildings and the 2 garages. One of the garages was not within the gated compound of the Bottling Works, but it was still used in the everyday business of the Bottling Works. The main building on River Lane, the large one, 35,000 square feet, that's where the business was run out of. The second building, the Hillquest building, that was where the box trucks, the delivery trucks, and all the maintenance was done out of. The third building, this cinder block building on Stevens that we're requesting to rip down, that was solely for bottling Jupiter Spring water. There's a artesian well there, and so we bottled water there for years. The 2 garages were, one garage was used just for storage. The other garage was used for, landscaping material, tractors, for the parking lot, things like that. The Bottling Works ceased bottling water in the Stephen Street building in the late 1990s. Shortly after that, in the year 2000, the Geneva Bottling Works closed down completely. Soon after the business closed, the 3 buildings that we're discussing tonight, they came out of use. We had virtually nothing in there, no use for them on an everyday basis. The building on River Lane and the Hillquest one on the corner, both of those properties were used. We use them for storage. There's a lot of memorabilia from the old Bottling Works site that's in there. There's John's a collector of antique cars. He has antique cars in there. So those 2 buildings are still used on a regular basis. It should be noted both of those buildings are heated. They have full utilities, and that's not the case with the other buildings. Once the bottling of Jupiter Springs ceased, the only heat that was in those buildings was overhead blowers, like garage blowers. And, when people were in there, they were turned on so they could work. When people weren't there, it wasn't on. And so that was the extent of it. Once we quit bottling in there, there was no reason to turn those blowers on at all. All the buildings were, we kept maintaining them. We kept maintaining the, the parking lot in there. But the 3 buildings that we're discussing, they weren't being used. And, so out of sight, out of mind. We would look at them in the front. We would do little patchwork as necessary. But over the years, we did less and less because the buildings weren't being used for anything. We had no idea that the deterioration became as bad. We were aware of lack of use, no heat. Animals were getting in there. We were constantly going in there, cleaning it out. But the damage to the roof hadn't begun yet. Once that damage to the roof began, it escalated quickly. We didn't see it. I don't think it would have mattered if we saw it in the beginning. Code enforcement, Forney does a great job. Something like this does not get, by him, I promise you. But all of the damage is to the back of the building, and it cannot be seen from the street. And because of the trees and stuff up there, even some of the neighbors can't, see it. And even though we were on site fairly often, we had no idea till Jim had sent us a letter. We went out there with him, and we took a look at it. At that time, we brought an architect in, take a look at it. But it was not only the roof collapsing, it was the support, beams were collapsing. The 2 garages, they're just aged. They're very old, wooden garages. They're just aging. The cinder block building, we looked at that to see what could be, done with it. And so much support, roof support had come down. The cinder block buildings are caving in, that it just became not realistic. We got prices of $300,000 to rebuild it with no utilities. in there. The two garages, I think, to bring it up to modern code, came to 120 for both the garages. The expenses, because they have to be completely brought up to code, we'd have to rip the foundations out. We're looking to, another thing I should mention, the city's been on that site. They have utilities that run through the site, and we've allowed them an easement through the site. The last 2 summers, they've been right on site, and nobody had seen this. It wasn't just us missing it. We weren't ignoring it by any means. But we do have city utilities going there, and it's very close to the foundations. It is a development site. We don't know what's going to happen. Eventually, we're going to have to bring all new sewer and water in. We're going to have to, redo everything. We didn't want to rip out the foundations, and the foundations literally are adjacent to where the new sewer and water was just put in by the city. Normally, when you move electric, you have to go to transformers and stuff. Because it's a development site, the electric department is allowing us to move the electric from this building and just move it over to the other building. Because currently the electric goes overhead to this building and over to the Hillquest building. That's not something that would be allowed nowadays, but that's how it's always been. So they realize they have to redevelopment sites, so they're not asking us to put transformers in. They're allowing us just to move the lines.
Just one, from what building to which building? From C to?
From C to the Hillquest building.
Okay.
On the corner. The only utilities that C had, it had gas, which has been removed that just ran the overhead heaters. Mm-hmm. And then the electric was just for the bottling machine and a couple lights in there.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
From the commission? Do you have any questions? Anyone? For the applicant?
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I do have a couple questions, if you don't mind, because there's a lot of information here, and we're talking about a lot of buildings. So I just want to clarify so that I know, no original buildings are left from the 1920s Bottling Works Company, correct?
The Bottling Works Company started across the street, across from Stevens, and that's where the original site was. And then around the war, they built the brick building, the 35,000 square foot building. That 35,000 square foot brick building is larger than all the other buildings on the site together. Mm-hmm. That was the main one. They ended up moving because they needed more and more, space over there. The building that was across the street is where Hogan's now put the townhomes. Okay. One of the reasons that was ripped down and we didn't look into keeping it, residential or moving it back to residential is, back then, it wasn't unusual if they wanted more room, that they would just knock out the wall in the basement and they'd add another, basement. We had a catacomb of stuff going on there, and we decided it was just time to do it. And we had a well right there on site that hadn't been capped. So that was the original bottling works site. So then around the war, the main building on River Lane was built, 35,000 square feet. The Hillquest building was there already. I believe it was right after that the building for bottling Jupiter Spring was built. Was that correct, Michael? The main building, the 35,000 square foot building, was built after the war in the 40s.
1948.
And then after that is when we added the bottling works building. It was an ancillary business, so it made sense for it to have its own site over there. And then the two garages were already, on the site, and they were used. The one garage in the beginning was not used. The two-car garage that's on Stevens Street, that was. It wasn't used for anything. It was just vacant. And then we just started, putting storage in there. Mm-hmm. The bottling works goes back so long that there are like wagon wheels and we didn't want to throw any of these things out, so we kept storing them. And so we kept putting them in, building to building, and so that's the sort of stuff you would find there. We still have it all. We don't know what we're going to do with it. We still have a wagon, where, beer used to be delivered in, and so we didn't want to get rid of that stuff, so we kept them in these, we just put them in these buildings. That's how we grew into using that two-car garage over there. The three-car garage was mostly, we had a tractor in there, landscaping. It was for, keeping the site, clear during the winter, because that's where the trucks used to come in. We had docks along. We had docks both on Stephen Street and through the parking lot, which we still do.
Can I, oh, are
No,
you?
go ahead.
You're not finished?
I'm not finished, but you go ahead.
All right, thank you. Joe, I was just going to ask, the warehouse building that is at the corner, and it appears to be a brick, kind of an orangey brick building.
The main building, the real big
Yes.
one on
Yeah,
River Lane.
I was just curious, do you have any idea what you're going to do with that building?
Well, right now, the whole product, I'm okay to answer if you let me, Michael?
You can
Okay.
answer it, but we want to keep it to the discussion of the
Oh.
demolition if you can.
Would you prefer I took my question back?
I think you can answer the question, but let's keep
Right
focused.
now, we're marketing the building, we're seeing what people want. We had put a proposal together a long time ago where we would have condos and stuff along, First Street, but we would keep the bottling works, the bottling works was built when all the Kern family was born, they sort of have a love for it. So the thought was to put offices on the first floor and to put, it's never going to work for retail, but we thought if we did a restaurant and a brewery and a distillery there, it would become a destination place. We even talked with the fire department about vacating River Lane and the Park District about widening the bike path. So with the bike path widened, there'd be enough room for a fire truck to go through, and then River Lane could just become pavers and be part of that building. We got pretty far along, a couple times, but those are big projects, and they, fell apart. So right now, it'll depend on what a developer brings to the table. We've talked to quite a few. We have discussions with Kathleen and David on a regular basis on what people think to do, but, so it's pretty much up in the air. But this is a big development site for the city. It's on their, we want to get it done list every single year, and we keep trying.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do have just, I think, one more question. I'm just thinking, I know that the owner of these buildings, they also own most of the homes on the 300 block of
Yes.
North First Street.
Yes.
So if a development goes in there, and those homes are historical, so do those homes, will they also risk the,
Again, we have to kind of keep it focused on the three buildings that we're looking at right now during the public hearing. So if it's not specifically about those three buildings and regarding it, I think that we
Okay.
don't need to ask the question.
sorry, Joe.
No problem.
No, that, I understand.
I am just a little concerned about the deferred maintenance on the three structures that we're talking about. That is my, one of my concerns right now, because I know the bottling company closed in 2000,
Yes,
so this is 22 years later.
right.
And those buildings are historical, and they were very important to the bottling company.
All I can say in defense is, it's a good point. They deteriorate. First off, when a building's not used and it's not heated, they deteriorate fast. You're right, the same owner owns the entire square block except for one parcel, and we're working on that. We make the same list of maintenance for every year for all those buildings, and those buildings aren't falling down. They're not falling down because they're heated, they're not falling down because they're being used, and they're not falling down because they're maintained. It's not that we just gave up maintaining the building. The level of maintenance dropped because they weren't being used. We were literally surprised when Mr. Forney reached out to us and told us about the damage. Especially, we talked to Jim on a regular basis about that block, and we were surprised because the city's been there doing the work, and not a single engineer or worker or department head said anything. So there was nothing malicious about it. I'm not saying we wouldn't have asked for it to be ripped down anyway, but the level of deterioration snuck up quickly, and that's what happens when you have an unused, unheated building on there. Animals get in there, and, you know.
This is my last question. I noticed that there's a for sale sign up on the property. So what is included in that sale? Is it the whole block?
The entire square block.
Okay. So, it's just for my own clarification, that's the homes that are on the 300 block of North First Street as well?
Right.
Is included in that sale? Okay.
To put it in perspective a little bit, you have setbacks, you have, you know, there's lots of things we have to comply with, or the developer will have to comply with there. By owning the entire parcel, whether he has to take it down and put townhomes up there, like, Hogan did next door, or whether he keeps them, he can go ahead and he can change those parcels and give them their minimum setbacks, which would make that, the bottling works site go almost all the way to First Street. I think the front setback there may be only 18 feet, 25 feet. It's pretty narrow. Your back setback isn't much, and those are very small homes. So that 300 feet, we could end up with 140 of it all belonging to the redevelopment site. So when, we are marketing it to developers, we talk to them. Each one's going to bring their own plan together, so I can't speak to them. But there's a wealth of directions they can go on it. Somebody might decide all those homes are going to stay, take as much property as you can, turn it into tiered parking, and just build the Hillquest and bottling works. That's an option for somebody. But at this point, we've given up developing it ourselves. We've tried over the years. So our ideas, and that was our idea. Those homes would stay. We would take as much land as possible. That's all bedrock there. So, you clear that bedrock, we'd have little levels of parking, which would be pretty neat looking. And then we were going to develop those two buildings in the corner. We were going to actually connect the two of them in there.
George, do you have any questions?
No, I just, I kind of lost in this other discussion here. I'm trying to understand the relevancy to these comments to the issue at hand.
Yeah. Okay. George, do you have any comments about the demolition per se?
No, I understand what's going on.
Okay. I guess I have a few questions about is the bottling works building, is it one story or two in there?
It's two-story up there. It's two solid stories, because, it was.
What's the construction of the floors? Is it wood floors or?
Concrete on both,
Okay.
concrete pillars holding them up. There were large openings from the second floor. All the beer was up there, and as it was ordered, it just rolled down the conveyor belts, and then went right into the trucks. It's a pretty solid building. It would take some creative work to redo it, but with those big windows in the back, it's an impressive building.
No, I'm actually talking about Building C itself.
Building C itself is one story.
Okay.
They had some rafters along the side they used for storing stuff, but it was a single story.
Single-story?
Building, yeah.
And is it on a crawl space, or is it just
No, it's just on a slab.
on slab?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's an interesting form, though. That's the cool part of it. But, any other questions from the commission? If not, I guess I will open it up.
Thank you.
You can be seated, and I'll open it up to the public. I guess, I think you wanted to speak, correct? Yes. Okay. You were the only other one that stood up, so.
Oh, okay, I didn't look behind me, but anyway, I'm Al Watts. I'm a Community Engagement Director for Preservation Partners of the Fox Valley. We're located at 8 Indiana Street in St. Charles. Just to refresh your memory, we educate about the value of historic preservation and operate 4 historic sites, Fabian Villa Museum and Japanese Garden in Geneva, and the Durant House and Shoals School in St. Charles. I thought that Commissioner Jensen brought up a really good point, and that's really where I want to go with my comment tonight, which is that the greatest concern about these buildings is their condition, and their condition is a result directly of their vacancy over a 2-decade period. Even if there was a strong case to be made for their historical or architectural significance, it's really hard to say there's a good case to keep the building because particularly that building C, I've taken a look at it and taken some pictures of it. It is falling in on itself, and it's certainly not habitable and is pretty much a hazard. Of course, I'm not necessarily the expert on demolition, but just looking at it from a citizen's standpoint, doesn't look great. But what we have here is an opportunity, because the city's historic building stock has to be adequately maintained if it's going to be preserved. And when a building is vacant for a long period of time, or it begins to deteriorate, then that's when we have the opportunity, or we lose the opportunity to save the building. And as I forget your name, Joe. As Joe mentioned, they didn't notice the deterioration for a long period of time. And that's totally understandable, and I get that because it's not from it's really hard to see actually, even with that roof falling in. It's even, you miss it when you drive by, if you just drive by, so I get that. But being vacant for 20 years also is something that maybe needs to be considered. So just to give you an example of something else that's similar that's happening in another city is that in St. Charles, there is a building at 13th in Indiana. I'm getting to my point, don't worry. That 13th in Indiana, that was a 1904 building, former glass cut factory, and the windows had been taken out. It was going to be redeveloped, and then the development stopped. The city began to fine the developer, however, for code enforcement. In April of this year, the city granted a demolition permit for that property based on its condition. However, they required there to be some fines that were levied to be paid, not the full amount, but some portion. As a result, the owner has decided not to pay the fines and not to demolish the building. This has given an opportunity. It's given it some time for the developer to maybe change their mind or for there to be a new developer to come in to take the property. And my point with that is when the city is looking at these historic structures, we have an opportunity to try to prevent a situation like this. So what I'm encouraging us all to do is to really take a look at all the buildings in the historic district, particularly ones that have been vacant for a period of time, because those are definitely at a higher risk of deteriorating, and then there's nothing that we can do about them at that point other than to unfortunately get rid of them. And once the building is gone, it's gone forever, and there's nothing you can do about it at that point. So my point simply is that I hope that this gives us an opportunity to look at citizens, commission, ourselves also, to look at buildings in the historic district and be aware of their condition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any testimony that they would like to give? Is there anyone online?
There's nobody joining online.
Okay. With that, I guess the next portion of it would be to, Mr. Stan, did you want to make any closing argument?
The only thing I'd like to add is two things. The position of the buildings, they're within that gated area. They're not up front and center on there. To not demo them, we would have to rebuild them. Mm-hmm. And to what end? What do we need with the garage in the middle there and rebuild this site, it would be a great expense. It's a redevelopment opportunity, something's going to happen there, everyone's going to get a lot of feedback. I don't see where forcing the rebuilding of these three buildings, which were, contributing buildings to the main, site. It is a shame that they were deteriorated. It's something that got out of hand, but it wasn't intentional. We didn't see it. Most people didn't, see it. And, as you spoke about, in the future addressing it, I don't think there's too many sites like this in Geneva, for one. And for two, if, I'm sure some of you've read it in the paper, heard about it through the city, we've been aggressively trying to develop the property for this entire time. So for 20 years, we've been there. We've gone through 3 economic, development directors in there. We've brought plans in, so we've tried. So the site wasn't ignored. We did try to develop it, but so I acknowledge everybody's comments and concerns. It's a tough situation, an unusual situation in a unique and unusual location. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the commission feel they need any additional testimony from any experts that would be required to? Does the commission need any additional testimony from any experts, or any additional testimony required?
Not from me.
Okay. If that's the case, I would like to get a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close?
I second.
Okay. Could you call the roll on that?
Jensen,
Yes.
Solomon,
Yes.
Stazen,
Aye.
Zinke,
Aye.
Zelmer.
Aye. Motion carries. The public hearing is closed. Okay, now we can debate the merits of the case, or we can postpone it to a date certain. I feel like we should just do the merits of the case right now. So, we would like to get started with,
Should we go through the 3 questions, building by building, as
We-
opposed to all
we-
3 together?
we could do that. I would suggest we do them building by building.
Okay.
Building A, B, and C, starting with Building A. Are they historically significant? I guess Building A is the first garage. It's the Lencioni, Steve's garage. Do we feel that that is historically significant?
I do not.
You do not, okay.
I don't.
No? Just a vernacular structure that happens to be old?
The box.
Okay. So if it's not historically significant, it does have some historic significance to the idea of Geneva being that it was where the Blue Goose started and things like that. So there are some merits to that, but would it be visible from that?
If I may, that's an interesting point. There's some history involved, but are we talking about overall the occupancy as well as the structure, or are we going to separate the two? The first question is building, so in my mind, that refers to the structure, not to the history or occupancy.
Well, I think
And,
I think it's both, actually. When we looked at other historic structures, we've looked at both the historic significance of what's happened there and also the historic significance of what the building is itself.
Okay.
I think to clarify your question, Commissioner Stazen, 1 goes to historic significance, which is in the site, the building, the users in general.
Right.
2 goes to your other question about condition. Question 2 is really about condition.
Okay. Okay?
Okay. Well, do you think that it's, I guess the 2 is the condition, and it's in rough
Right.
shape? So,
Well, I would for one then say there may be some history, but, given 2, the building certainly is not historically significant, and the condition would not, in my mind, warrant attempts at any preservation.
okay,
Agreed?
agreed, okay.
Yeah.
Caroline, do you agree?
I agree, yes.
Okay, and then,
I do have a question.
sure,
So if any of the structure is deemed historically significant, and I'm not saying that we should preserve the building, I'm not saying that, I'm just questioning because there is some original features still present in,
correct.
okay. So we will dismiss those original features?
Well, I think number 3 goes to should the building be documented as what it is right now? And I think that is, that can be done through a survey of what exists right now, and what's that?
With photographs.
With photographs and with measured documents. So do we feel that structure is historic enough to not be saved, but would require a historic survey of it?
Well, I would think that C would.
Well, let's stay with A to start
Oh,
with,
well,
and then
okay.
and then we'll move to A, B, and C.
Okay, all right, so then A.
So A is a garage.
Right.
Yeah,
I would say no for
you
A.
would say no? Okay. Would everyone agree with that?
Agreed.
Okay, so I guess that then going to the other garage on the site, garage number B, which is a simple vernacular structure. Again, I could see that it is historically significant because it did play a part in the development of Geneva and it's an industrial area. But is it possible and reasonable to save the building? I would say it's possible, but may not be reasonable.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and then with it being the garage, does anyone have any thought that it would need to be memorialized through either photographs or drawings or measured drawings or that sort of thing?
I mean, it's a utilitarian structure that was used for those types of purposes and such. But I didn't see anything of any significance in its history or background. There was no tie-in with the goose or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's an old building.
okay. Okay, then going to the water bottling plant, number C, do you feel that it is historically significant? And is it, if it is, do you think that we can preserve it reasonably?
No,
No.
I do think it's historically significant, but in the condition it's in now, I think that it would be unreasonable, in my opinion, to require that someone restore the building.
Okay.
And I agree with Carol, and the thing is, then what do you do with it? I mean,
Correct.
So it's like, you could preserve it, but to what benefit?
Okay. Do you think that memorializing it with physical documentations, which would be either a drawing of some kind or at least just good photographic evidence that would be given to, is there an archive in the city or is it,
We do keep a file on every property. I guess when you're talking about photography, in preservation, there's a lot of different ranges of that. Right now, we have photographs that have been submitted as part of this application that show all the sides of the building that are accessible. Are you looking for something more elaborate than that? I mean, there are, in some cases, and I'm not saying this is a case that warrants it, but in some cases, there's, black and white rectified photography is requested or whatever, but I guess I'm asking what level of, if you're talking about photographic documentation, I guess I'd ask what level, if it's sufficient, what's been submitted already. I think the testimony probably suggests, and if you've looked at the building, that doing measured drawings is probably not a safe proposition around
Correct.
two of those buildings at least. So I guess if you're saying it should be memorialized, I guess just some clarification whether the memorialized with the photographs that have been submitted is sufficient, or if you're looking for something more elaborate than that.
Many times when we are in other historic districts, there are plaques that might have a drawing of a building, but then there will be history of the building, when it was used, when it was built, what purpose it had, and I wonder if that might be something that could happen with Building C, because the bottling company was a big deal in town. There were a lot of folks from Chicago that came to Geneva to be able to work in the bottling, the bottling company, and it's artesian wells, which are underneath the building, which is a big deal for those of us who are interested in geology. I think that's a part of Geneva's history. So I would love to see some sort of sign, plaque, something.
I would just say that I think that's something that is done, but frequently that's done in the redevelopment phase of a site rather than in the demolition. So because not knowing what might occur there, but usually it's memorialized in that fashion in the as part of a redevelopment project rather than as part of a demolition request. So
Is that something that we could recommend happen?
Well,
Or no?
again, as was pointed out by Mr. Stanton when he was giving his testimony, is that there is an active effort to redevelop the site, which means it will come back to the commission at some point for redevelopment. So I think that would be an appropriate time to seek some kind of plaquing or, more elaborate
Signage.
history that'd be incorporated in some kind of redevelopment. Yes, Mr. Stanton wants to speak. He's already
Sure.
given testimony. but-
You've already given testimony, so
I just wanted to make one clarification, if I could.
Sure.
Okay. The only bottling that was done in the building was for Jupiter Spring Water. There was, Geneva Bottling Works did do bottling, for 7-Up, other companies, but that was not done in Building C.
Oh.
This was just for bottling
Water.
Jupiter Spring, water, nothing else.
Okay.
And that's from the artesian well, is that right?
I'm sorry, pardon me?
And that's from the artesian well that was on the site?
There was an artesian well, and when the well dried up, we could have dug a new well, but by that time, it was cheaper to outsource. Bottled water was becoming so popular
Okay.
that a few companies were bottling for everybody. So we chose not to dig another well.
Okay.
Well, so I guess, do we feel the documentation for what we've seen? I think it probably meets the requirement of what we're looking for.
The character, the shape is unique
It is.
because of all the other structures pretty much being more industrial and germane, but I can't fall in love with this thing just because its shape is different from the surrounding.
Sure.
And so I think we have to temper that enthusiasm to some degree.
Okay. Agreed? Okay. Well, it sounds like we don't seem to have a problem at all with recommending. Are we actually recommending, Michael, or are we actually just voting?
You're making a determination in the case of a demolition.
Okay. So, I guess, can I get a motion to to do demolition on these three structures?
I move that we approve the demolition of buildings referenced as A, B, and C on 8 Stephen Street, Geneva.
Anything about documentation at all?
No, I'm comfortable with the level that we have at this point. It should be preserved somehow in whatever vehicles we currently have, but I wouldn't make that part of my motion.
Sure.
I would just like to make a clarification. The property is commonly addressed as 8 Stephen Street, but the actual physical addresses of the parcels that the buildings sit on are 327 North First Street and 302 North River Lane. So I think it'd be appropriate to at least identify that they're commonly addressed as 8 Stephen Street, but the buildings are actually on those properties at 302 North River Lane and 327 North First Street.
I amend my motion to include the addresses referenced by Michael Lambert.
Very good. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Can you call the roll?
Jensen,
Aye.
Solomon,
Aye.
Stazen,
Aye.
Zinke,
Aye.
Zelmer.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, thank you very much. The, what's it? 5 minutes? Yeah, we can. We'll take a 5-minute recess to let the,
Wasn't there another woman that stood up that wanted to, I thought there were 2 people, when you swore them in, that wanted to make some kind of public statement.
there were only 2 people that stood up.
Right, but only one testified.
And Al.
we're back. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the review of conceptual design development plans for 414 South River Lane. Matthew McKnight, owner, and Sean Gallagher, architect.
Thank you, Chairman Zelmer. 414 South River Lane is located in the far southeastern corner of the Geneva, local Geneva Historic District, and is the far southeastern corner of the central Geneva Historic District listed in the National Register of Historic Places. I provided a fairly comprehensive history of this house. It was built in 1955 for a newlywed couple who he was involved with the gypsum business. This is one of the last homes built in the River Lane area that was begun in 1925 by Kate Raftery. This actually is in the Riverside Addition portion that was developed by Frank Renwick at the south end of Kate Raftery's beautification project. The house is a simple Cape Cod home, very minimal in details and very typical of the period. It's very symmetrical. It's very simple, and then the main body is articulated or differentiated from the original service wing, which included the kitchen and the garage, which is set apart from the main body with the board and batten siding that is original to the home. I've provided views of the views that you can see from the public right-of-way, so you have a fairly good idea of what the house looks like along River Lane. Just to give you an introduction, I've included a few more images here than I include in the staff report. But the Cape Cod house style came out of the Colonial Revival. It's one of the later styles out of the Colonial Revival architectural period. And it was simplified by, or it was identified by very simple massing, typically with the, not typically, but with the roof plane facing the street. A very symmetrical arrangement of windows and doors, or at least apparently symmetrical. Sometimes they were offset slightly from being symmetrical. The most common form does not have dormers in the roof plane facing the street. However, if dormers are present, they usually are a simple gabled dormer, as you can see in these examples. Entryways were typically flush with the main facade of the house, typically with some kind of a classical surround around the door, whether that be fairly simple with just a small entablature and pilasters on either side, or something more elaborate with side lights on either side of the door. Porches are very rare in the Cape Cod style. Typically, porches were very restrained with maybe just an extension of a roof to create a small stoop and some protection at the front, or in some cases, porticos were added either at the time of initial construction or in ensuing years, such as the middle example in the lower row here. That's a later addition of a front porch on a Cape Cod home. But as I said, some porches were original. The upper left corner is actually a Sears model of a Cape Cod. It's a very early Cape Cod that is still reflecting some of the late Victorian era detailing and shingle style, but it's not typical of what you find in a Cape Cod. But again, some other examples of Cape Cod homes of the period. And then the one on the lower left is a rather large Cape Cod home that has a connection to an attached garage and a large screen porch on the opposite side of the home. So these are very typical examples of what the elements of a Cape Cod home are. This I didn't realize. Oops. Okay. There we go. The applicant has submitted 4 concepts for your consideration and review and comment this evening. I've assembled them all on one slide here that might be helpful as you're discussing this evening to compare the different concepts, and I'll let the applicant go into the detail. But just so you're aware, a couple of things that I identified. I've highlighted what is the historic central portion of the Cape Cod home that's being proposed to be retained, and then just identify a few other elements. The area shaded in blue is very complementary to the existing service wing, which was originally, like I said, sided in board and batten siding. The applicant is putting a period appropriate door in all of his schemes, so it's not trying to be a 19th century carriage door, it's trying to be an authentically derived multi-panel door that would have been found in the mid-20th century. And the historic ventilator that was part of the original design of the garage is being repurposed at the north wing of the new proposed north addition at the building. Again, ventilators were very common on garages in this period. Again, that concept of early American architecture. Also, the project consists of a proposed projected front entry. These are details from the architectural drawings showing that it's reusing the historic door, adding side lights, and then extending the space out enough to get some additional light and some additional space for the front entry foyer. Again, I'm providing these so everybody's aware of what images are available, the applicant and the commission. So I've combined all the Concept A elevations that for all 4 sides of the project as proposed. I'm also providing the comparative site plans. So, oh, I see I didn't. This should be labeled A, B, and C for the site plans that show the minor differences between the site plans. Concept B elevations, and then the floor plans for reference, if that assists both the applicant and the commissioners understanding what is being proposed in the various alternates. So we have those concepts. Also for concept C, again, I've highlighted the original portion of the house is being retained in all the examples as reference points, and then concept D. So with that, I would like to turn the lectern over to Matthew McKnight, who is the owner, and Sean Gallagher, who is the architect, to come up and elaborate on this complicated, not complicated, but complex submittal.
I'm Matt McKnight. Thank you for having us. Basically, I've lived in this house for the past 3 years. I rented it for 2 years, well, until actually this May, so 2 years, from a family friend who's across the street, the Baumgartners, who own the house, and updated it from when they bought it a couple years ago. And I've always liked the house since I was in there, and then that's why I decided to buy it. I like the area, everything else. It's just I wanted to expand and improve on the house. One of my big issues was the garage. It doesn't show in these pictures, but it's kind of slanting, and that was one reason I knew I'd need to do something soon, even just with the garage. And then kind of went from there. Trying to think of anything else. And then thank you for Michael. Some of our plans in here have changed from his insight and other things he gave us, so we changed many things, and and a lot of that's shown in here. With different things, so with the different concepts.
So if
Sure.
Mr. McKnight,
Yes.
the garage, when I was there this afternoon.
Turn on your mic, please.
When I was there this afternoon, I thought the garage did not have a too wide door, but it had a single door, then there was a space, and then a single door. Is that how it is now?
It's a double door. It's just an old garage door, but it's a double door. It's
is?
one, yeah. for
It's a
two-
single 16-foot wide door.
Standard two-car garage width, and the width does not change in the new plan, but.
Okay.
And it would be a single door.
Okay,
That doesn't change at all.
okay.
Other things do, but the width is the exact same width.
I wonder if I was at the wrong house. 414 South River Lane.
Yep,
It's,
second.
it's the last house before the path.
Oh, you were
Right.
at the.
You were at the Baumgartner's house.
Baumgartner's house.
So-
I'm at the wrong house.
Did review that project.
Just turn around and then you would have been looking, yeah, so.
Oh,
However, some of our
okay.
aspects, we want to mimic that house in some of the concepts, but we'll go into,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
because,
yes.
because the house I was looking at is one that we worked on
It is
quite a few years ago.
2017, 18,
Something
I
like
think,
that, okay.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
good, thank you. I'm glad I asked the question.
Sure.
All right.
So maybe I can give a little rundown. I know there's a lot to this, and I understand it's a sizable project. Now, I do want to clarify something real quick here. Staff indicated that it's a five-fold increase. Now, I need a definition. What is five-fold? Let's use a 100-square-foot shed. What would the end result of that square footage be if it were five-fold larger?
Approximately 500 square feet. And I,
It wouldn't be 600, it'd be 500.
Right.
Okay, great. So let's do this. So I'm going to run the numbers on this for you, okay? Here's the thing.
it was just, it was an estimate,
Okay,
so I did
it
not run
scares
numbers.
people. Let me just say, five-fold scares people.
Yeah.
And it's only, understandably, it's less than two-fold larger, okay? So I just wanted to be clear about that, because when I looked at five-fold, I got scared. So that's why I spent a little time grinding numbers and seeing where I was at with it, to make sure that I was, because if you take all the square footage that's currently present in the house, and then subtract out the addition, it turns out that it's, so that's where I come up with the number.
My apologies. I based five-fold on what was remaining of the historic house
Right.
as to what's being constructed new. So
Sure.
it's just a difference
Sure.
of calculations, which
Okay.
we know how that works.
Well, anyway, the current mass that's there, it's only about 1.8 times larger than what's there. It is bigger, understandable, and it's a sizable project. In terms of what so do I have control of this, or you do? Okay, so maybe we could go, you did so much work for this, thank you. So if you go to the comparison of all the elevations, this is perfect. And is there a laser on this, maybe? Or, oh.
Somebody had a laser.
Hey, Sean, what is the approximate before and after?
Good. Let me get you that.
Then we'll do our own math.
Oh, the battery. Oh, no.
Oh, there it goes.
Okay, actually, George, let's go through that right now, so that I can kind of summarize all
Yeah,
of that.
because two folds and five folds,
Yeah,
whatever.
no, I
Let's
get
just
it, I
get
get
to
it.
the brass tacks.
Absolutely, yep. So, first thing is, the lot area is 13,000 square feet. Okay,
Okay.
so it's an oversized lot for the neighborhood, but that aside, the actual, so let me make sure I got this. The allowable building area for this, based on code, is 3,550 square feet. This, when we do all the math based on the way the city calculates it, this addition is 3,195 square feet. So we have about 355 square feet that we could, in theory, add to this project. Allowable height, 35 feet. This house is 22 foot 7 inches tall. We are no taller than that with the additions. So our addition is set up in any of these schemes, and I will say, our preference is A, and this is like a studio opportunity. For those of you who haven't gotten to go to architecture school, today you're in architecture school because we're doing sort of crits, right? And I appreciate your allowing us to do, so the idea here is that the main body of the house is here, the addition is here. This addition here, as far as its footprint, is essentially the same width as what is currently there. So we are only coming forward, in the case of the garage, about 4 feet farther out from its current location, and this piece about 2 feet farther than its current location. In all of these, this addition here serves as a sort of age-in-place space. It can be a studio or a workout facility, and it has its own bathroom with it, but long-term, it can act as an age-in-place space.
And that building, that's kind of offset from the front of the main
Right,
building.
it's about 6.5 feet back from the front of the main house. And this surface here, real quick, that ends up being about 6'2" back from the current face of the house, and this is about 4'2" back from the face of the house. So all of this is set back. One of the things that we're contending with, oh, I can't advance this. Could you go to a floor plan, Michael? So Michael had mentioned this is fine. So Michael had mentioned, so there's currently a stair going up to the second floor. We added this, or we're hoping to add this little vestibule. It's just basically a glass vestibule, so that the way you enter this house, you enter within 4 feet of the stair right in front of you. And so it's very, very tight. So the idea here is to give a little bit of space to the front to allow for the door to swing in, and to not, because the way the door swings in right now, you're going to have to step around it in order to get to the closet. I don't see measure drawings in here, Michael, so I don't know if maybe I didn't give you the measure drawings, or are the measure drawings in here? The original drawings?
That's the other one.
Okay. No. So the way the house is set up right now, the stair goes up here, and we're going to modify that to try to give a little bit more space on the interior here. We are going to reuse the existing door and just simply put it in a new spot here, and then do side lights and then taller transom-like windows so that Matt can at least get little benches on the side, and then probably hooks on the walls so that a guest can simply leave their things. But the existing house is from here across, so the existing garage goes across like this, all the way back into here. So that's kind of where the existing house is. We are removing the kitchen that's there and replacing it with a new one, and then the garage ends up setting up as a tandem, but this line is the same as what is currently there. It's only that we're coming forward about 4 feet from the existing front elevation, and this is 2 feet from the face of its current location as well. Beyond that, this piece here, we've set back far, and the one thing we are doing too is any windows that are on this side of the house, we are going to be repurposing for the addition. So this window is actually going to be a repurposed window from the back to here. These 2 windows are coming from the side, and above here are additional windows that we'll be using on the gable end of this addition on the north side. The back, so what we tried to do, if we can go back to the elevations, Michael. Yeah, all 4 of them. Yeah, there you go. So, okay, good. So what we tried to do was, so this ridge here matches the ridge height of the existing house. I dropped the roof line here a little bit in order to create a separation between the original house. This wall starts back, like I said, about 6 feet from the face of this existing wall, and it goes up to a knee wall and then springs back, and then on the back becomes all of the roof line complexity that we need to work through. But in the back is the family room, and then this extends all the way to the back of the house as a bedroom suite above. Now you'll notice we have different approaches. We have the gable facing forward, and then at Michael's recommendation, we looked at the roof line coming forward this way. In this case, we have a knee wall, and then we've cut dormers in to try to get head height for the master. One of the things is we've got a sweet spot here as far as a view to the water. So we are between 2 houses.
Oh,
And so we want to try to maintain a view from what is going to end up being a bedroom here, and then this master suite there out towards the water. And yeah, so you're between Baumgartner's and the other house there.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of materials and lap of siding, it is smooth hardy plank as planned. Trim is going to match existing trim. There is a cupola we're showing. That cupola is existing. It was saved from some work that Baumgartner's had done, a new roof at one point, and they they basically just put it in the garage. We are going to actually rehabilitate it and then put it on the roof line here on that north piece. What we're seeking from you is some guidance or some preference on this. Again, our preference is A, though I'm giving you these other iterations, because one of the complaints, rightly so, is that you never get to see what has been tested. You often just get the thing, and then you're sort of stuck trying to figure out, well, what if you did this, what if you did that, what if you did this? We tried, so this is design iteration number 5 of these 4. So this is the 5th iteration in a series. And so these 4 are that sort of amalgam of all of those. And then this was the last version we did, which has this shed dormer facing River Lane. And obviously the windows are higher up because this is really tricky for us structurally, as well as just technically inside the master bedroom, because the master bedroom wall has to slide way back into the roof line to start. So it gets pretty complicated, whereas having the gable face this way is pretty clean for us. You may remember the Croson residence. That was the one over on Franklin where we had the roof line kind of like this before, and it proved structurally a little bit more fussy. And then we ended up doing sort of a gable facing, and that made things a little cleaner for us. You do notice, too, that there's a board and batten scheme here. There's currently board and batten on the house. One of the conversations we had with Michael involved, maybe mixing up some of the sidings. I know board and batten is, sort of farmhousey in a way, but it's present on the existing house, and we thought, well, that might be a nice way of differentiating. We are trying to, again, set these additions back, creating a slightly different character in terms of the roof line facing the street front, so that the main house is the main house, and that's the kind of the highlight. I do want to mention one other thing. With these roof lines here that come down, unfortunately, what ends up happening is we cut off a window on the side that can actually be used for egress, because the way the roof line comes forward. If we do one of these schemes, it will require that we replace this window, which is currently a double hung, a small double hung, convert that into a mock double hung, which is a casement to look like a double hung, in order to meet that egress standard. So that's why this has a little note to it, just to highlight that. Whereas these other 2 schemes, they simply leave the dormers in place, and we don't do anything with them. Now, I'm more than happy to go through every one of the Secretary of the Interior standards as well as your guidelines, and just kind of chat through those if you'd like. But there again, I did try to be as exhaustive as possible with a concept review, in part because to your credit, you don't get to see a lot of this stuff. You don't get to see the site plans usually. You'll just see sort of some sketched elevations, and you're left sort of guessing at what you're going to have to, deal with. Here, I'm trying to be as comprehensive as I possibly can, not only for you, but also for Matt, so that he knows what he's getting as well.
Is there a roof plan in any of?
Uh-oh.
I had one.
There is one.
You want to see? Yeah, it's fun.
I did not get measured drawings of the existing conditions, but there was a roof plan, and the last time I put a roof plan, it confused everybody, so I just chose not to put it in, but
There's 4 different roof plans, right?
yes.
Yes, sir.
Well, and the only reason I ask about a roof plan is because there's a bunch of different roofs here, and
Yeah,
I'm
go to the rear
trying
elevation.
to.
I think that'll help George.
Yeah, I mean, in concept,
So this
We
is
lost it.
A. No, this is good. This is A. So this is version
Okay.
A. So I shouldn't get
yeah, well, I was doing a compare and contrast. I
Oh.
like the 4 elevations up there.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Michael, I guess. I thought this might help you see that.
Yeah,
what the
no,
roof is doing. Yeah.
could we go back to the 4 elevations, please?
That's,
There, either one, I don't care. Too far. Okay. What I'm trying to sort out is the pitch of the roof on the remodel on the left side. Do those roofs align? In concept B, other than, is the slope from the ridge down to the eave the same.
Yeah, so it's a 12-12. This
Okay,
existing-
they're both
Yes,
that way.
Yep,
Okay.
yeah.
And the other one, I see the gable end, but then I see something past that.
So you're talking about this?
No, there's another roof. That, yeah.
Okay, so if I had a roof plan, I'd show you. So here's where the tricky part gets. This roof line here comes all the way down to the plate height here. So that
Okay.
means then, to get head height in the master bedroom, I
Right.
have to cut the dormer in order to do that. Whereas in this
Oh,
version.
because you turn the end.
Exactly.
Okay, got
Exactly.
it,
Yep, cool.
got it.
That's a little more visible if you want me to go to the,
Sure.
what you're doing here. So you can see on the left south elevation that
Okay.
dorm that he's punching out to get that headroom he was speaking of, and that's mimicked on both sides of that street-facing gable.
Right,
Got
right.
it.
If we pull that roof line forward, that's what, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. So again, to differentiate this side, the dormer character is a little different, right? Because the existing ones has the little gables here. I'm just doing a simple shed to play off of kind of what's going on with the rest of it. We do add shutters. We have shutter dogs. We're trying to be as sort of authentic to what it would have been. I don't know if the house, or if we have photos of the house that originally had shutters. We don't seem to know that, but there were some shutters, so in the old photograph that you had, but I think they were vinyl, I don't know. So in the packet you gave me, it had
Yeah, the
shutters.
217,
Right, right.
2017 shows shutters.
Sean, could you go back to the square footage? The house as it is right this moment, what is its square footage, please?
As it stands right now, so when I ran the numbers on this, the house total square footage, now, here's where I have to make a distinction. I'm giving you gross square footage outside walls to outside walls, including garage, okay?
Yeah.
The city looks at it differently. They have this 20-foot calculation line, right? So I'm not even going to talk about the 20-foot calculation line. I'm just going to look at gross area.
Okay.
So on the second floor and garage of the existing house, the house is about 2,152 square feet.
Okay?
Okay. Now, our proposal adds 2,901 square feet of habitable space and 259 square feet of garage. Okay? So that totals 3,160 square feet of total addition.
3,100
60 square feet. That is gross. That is not how the city calculates this. That's how you would, if you took the outside walls and everything with the addition and all of that.
Say the garage square footage again, please?
We're going to add 259 square feet to it. Add it.
Add,
Right.
okay, yeah.
The existing, when I gave you
20 by 20 is 400, plus that other bay that goes back.
Right. When I
It's-
gave you 2,152 square feet of the existing, that includes garage, first floor,
Okay.
and second floor. That is the entire house as it sits on the site right now,
Okay.
outside walls.
So when you do this remodel,
Mhm.
you're saying it will be 3,160 square feet?
Additional. So you're basically shy of doubling the square footage of the existing house.
Okay, but when I look at the diagram,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like the proposed house is possibly 4 times the size.
What's not shown here is the original kitchen and the original garage.
Okay, which would
Okay,
be...
so here, let me try that. So the original kitchen is right in this area here,
Right there, okay,
and the original garage
is right there.
is right back here.
Okay,
It
so
kind of goes
then,
back in, so we don't have the measure drawings to,
Okay.
I'm sorry, should I
So-
stay up here?
so we put those 3 together as the house as it is right now. And then
So this is new,
that's
and then
new.
this back piece,
That's
that's
new.
new, and then the stuff above here is new. But I don't have the second floor here, though.
So then if a person is standing on the sidewalk looking at the house,
Yep.
when
The
it's
elevations, Mike?
completed, what they will really see is the new bedroom that's on the right-hand side,
Yes.
but everything else will look like it was, but it'll have a second floor.
Second floor, exactly. Yeah, could you go back to the elevations that had the blue bar at the base, Michael? Because that kind of helped. And I did this too. So I did a ratio of the actual elevations. So this is interesting. So existing front elevation, if you took a polyline, for those of you that are AutoCAD people, you do a polyline around this whole thing of the original. Michael has drawn a blue box here. That's sort of the area that the existing garage is, and then there's a roof line above this.
Right.
So if I drew a line and took the area of this whole thing right now, okay, that square footage, just in the face elevation, would be 1,154 square feet. Now, when I take this, so from the roof line up, I take this chunk, and then I take this elevation, that gives me about an additional 527 square feet to the front elevation. So it's not that much. It's actually 28% of the elevation, or I'm sorry, 45% increase in the existing elevation size. So we've got this piece here, and then we have this piece here going on the front. There is this little piece here that is that
Yeah.
little front
Yeah.
entry. So we're just adding this elevation and then what's going on above here.
Okay. The numbers sound good. It's just, it looks so huge to me.
I think it's a little bit misleading, and it between A and C, I think I wonder what the massing would actually look like, because you're dealing with things farther and farther back.
Right. And I guess the one thing having this piece in the foreground adds more mass. Again, this starts to minimize it, and then we've got the knee wall here, so the roof line sort of diminishes farther back. And again, this surface is back, I get 6 or 7 feet back. This is from the front, about 4.5 feet back from the front here. And this dormer starts about a foot back from that wall. So the dormer's actually set back from the front of the house.
You know, that's, I've said it before, and I just can't let it go. When you're looking at 2 dimensions on these elevations without the shadow lines on there, a rendering tells so much more in terms of physically what it looks like, because now you can't, I know dimensionally that the planes are different, but in a flat 2D presentation, it's very, and I agree, the original house gets lost in the elevations. You know, you really can't tell, and the shading, certainly Michael helps it, but if we look at the other one without the coloring in there,
Well, and if
we
we went-
lose it even more.
If we went old school, right, you'd do the super dark outline of the first piece that's in the
Right,
foreground,
right,
and then you
yeah.
do the lighter line, lighter
Yeah.
line, lighter line.
So,
that sort of
yeah,
trick of the eye,
it
but-
is, so with a 2-dimensional, we've got to think 3D on this, and that makes it a little more difficult.
Yeah, it does. Sean, the ridge line of the addition in A and C, on the left side, that one, is it behind the ridge line of the existing house?
No,
It is in the same,
it can't be. The center of this is, if that house is probably like, I don't know, 30 feet deep, it's 15 feet back from the face of this.
okay.
This is not 15 feet back from the face of the house.
Okay, but what I'm saying, though, the ridge line itself, the one above, that one right there, not that one, but the next, that one,
Oh, it's behind, yes.
it's behind the existing.
It has
Yes,
to
sir.
be if the
It has to
slope
be
is,
if you're using
same,
the same
yeah.
slopes, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, you're
Yeah.
right, I'm sorry.
I mean,
misunderstood.
that's gonna help too, right?
Right, so yeah, to your point, that goes back to the back side of the rafter going down,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whereas the one within
That
elevation
one's-
B, is that in the same plane?
It's flush with the top, yep,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, that was the intention here, was to try to break the line from,
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's successful.
Well, that would be something that, yeah, we
Wanna make sure we
need to
keep- yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
define, as I think you would like to as well, the original structure from that, and then the materials, you'll do board and batten on the garage addition, the existing elevation then on the, whatever we're calling that building is the same
It's
as
an
it
8-inch
is
lap.
now?
Yeah, it's an
Okay.
8-inch smooth lap.
Except for the projection in that covered entryway.
Yeah, the projection is actually a panel, if you want to go to that little piece, Michael. So we're keeping the front door, we're doing there you go. And so we have 2 awning-type windows, and then these are just panels underneath. For paint. So again, to create a distinction between the
Yeah.
original house and,
Yeah.
And not only the door, we're keeping the archway over, it has some intricate.
yep, that's right.
Just work.
The
I mean,
trim.
it's, the
Yeah.
trim is,
Yeah.
we're gonna pull that forward and add that above the door also, just refurbish
Yeah.
it, but bring that forward.
And in terms of process, we did have a much steeper pitch and a window in this early on, and then working with Michael to just try to minimize its impact on the front elevation, we felt, okay, yeah, let's definitely drop that pitch and just minimize that material. We're not doing standing seam on that or anything, it's just simply shingles.
And the other reason for this, the biggest reason, is functionality. Right now, you walk in and the stairs are over
Yeah,
about 2
yeah.
feet, and you literally open the door and the door almost hits the stairs. So if you're in the little dining room there, you can't be in the winter because it's just all air. So with this, then you have at least somewhere to stop, and at least the air doesn't immediately hit there, and the door's not, there's like, I don't know, 2-3 inches of clearance currently with the little closet there, and then the stairs are off to the side. It would be better even if the stairs were straight, but for some reason, the door's center, but the stairs aren't.
What were they thinking when they built
I don't know,
it,
because the
huh?
fireplace is right there too.
Well, that's the
You
other
open
thing.
it to the fireplace, so
And that fireplace is actually
off-center.
off-center for the whole room, so it's.
Really?
Yeah, so it makes the entrance.
Go to that plan, Michael.
Very odd.
Which is very typical of these 1950s, 1940s Cape Cods. The chimney is rarely at the center of the house.
Well, I was going to ask you too, the Bruce floors are parallel with the floor joists. Why? That threw me for, anyway, could you go to the plan, I'm sorry.
Which
This is
plan would you
Talking too
like?
much shop now, but yeah.
Which plan would you like?
What?
Which plan would you like? A, B?
A, just plan A.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to kind of help illustrate that.
So you like A, though?
Yeah, it just, and as far as the second floor, it works much better for the master suite.
Okay.
In terms of higher ceilings. Again, we're still a 24-foot tall house here, so I'm going to have to try to take advantage of the roof pitch in some of this, and so we're going to have that pitch drywalled. I do want to just take a quick moment and say a thank you to Michael, and I want to point something out that was really helpful. So when we came in with a scheme, we actually had this whole piece set back over here, and it made it very complicated in terms of the planning of this. Just a quick little doodle that he sent us, had us set this all up on center. So now we get this really nice center line here, and the stair fills this gap, which is where that kind of, where you saw from the back that sort of low slope roof is. So this becomes the place where we can pick up that drainage and then take care of that. So you've got gable coming into here, gable coming into here, that pitch goes into there, and now we collect all that water, and it's perfect. So I mean, it really helped to make that. So I think that collaborative thing that happens between your staff member and the architects that we're working with, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
So,
And
Are
the
tho-
sight lines, the window lines up with the fireplace, like the whole house.
yeah, the
then.
sight line is really neat.
And then in the front too,
Yeah.
Great.
that's where those 2 lines, those are window, and then
Yeah.
window all the way to the fire.
Are those
Why
AC, are those condensers in the back
Yeah,
behind the
just kind of-
stair?
Yeah, why the little
Terrace.
niche there, though?
What's that?
Why for those condensers? Why didn't you just take it further out rather than create
stair
that? Yeah,
Or I think it's probably a roof line situation
It
where.
is, and also we
Yeah.
have windows coming up above here for a master,
Oh,
for a bathroom
okay.
above.
got
To your
it.
point, we're also, so here's the terrace, so you don't have the sound, right? It's kind of nice. It's going to
Yeah.
bounce around a little bit in there,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
but anyway, again, I'm sorry, we're maybe off topic a little
Yeah.
bit, all that to say, existing windows are being repurposed throughout this entire, so public way, I can see this. The other thing is, this side of the house is pretty, if you got to the house, the neighboring house is very tight to this side, and there's a pretty heavy kind of, it's like a shrub line or something along that edge, so,
There's, old trees that are gonna go.
yeah. But the proximity
that
between the
tree's
two is pretty tight, so, viewing this elevation is very different, because that house sits forward of this house a little bit.
But that entire wall is going to be removed and replaced?
Correct, right. Because we have to do, well, first of
Oh,
all,
because
structure.
you have to carry, okay,
And we don't know what's going on with the foundation.
got it.
Sean, looking at the space that is behind the garage, what is all that?
Sure. So this is set up as a tandem garage. This is actually going to be a dog wash facility. And then you've got the mudroom coming through here, a powder room, closet, and then cubbies. And then you have pantry throughout, and then we enter into kind of the main body of the house. We have two entries here, one for kind of quick, easy entry where we park here, or if we're using the backyard and we're doing, plantings and stuff, we come through the back this way.
I see.
So mudroom here, and then the tandem or the kind of long queue for the parking of the car.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Can you go back to the 4 elevations one more time?
May I just interject something here that I discussed with Mr. McKnight and Sean, and why you have a fourth concept? Again, if you recall the house that Carolyn thought we were looking at tonight.
Yeah.
When that one came forward, they were coming forward as a tax assessment freeze project, if you remember. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do.
But the comment came back from the state that the street-facing gable that is over that garage overwhelmed the historic home, and that was the major reason they did not pursue the tax assessment freeze. So I knowing that the preferred concept was elevation A, I encouraged them to look at something that was more in line with what the SOI standards would suggest for a Cape Cod, which is not their favorite design, but that is why you have the 4 concepts. Is that they were trying to, this is not being pursued as a tax assessment freeze, but again, I'm always trying to learn how the state interprets the SOI standards, and so I challenged them to at least look at this other option. So just in case you're wondering why that
Yep.
is a departure, that's how that evolved.
So which of these concepts, or which of these elevations do you think, if they asked for the tax assessment freeze, what would pass in Springfield? In your opinion?
Not, in my opinion, I'm going to say based on past experience, the street-facing gable over the garage does not meet the SOI standards per the state's review for the tax assessment freeze because it changes the character of the street frontage.
So that would be D. Right.
Correct, but there are issues with D, as Sean pointed out, there's some structural challenges, some other things, but I just wanted to bring that up, why there is this, why B and D were explored.
I see.
And that comes strictly out of our past experience with SOI reviews, SOI
Okay.
standard reviews with the State Preservation Office.
Okay.
And I would think actually in a way, it is sort of beneficial to see all of these so that you can get a spectrum of this family of potential solutions. And again, we really are keen to that one.
Did you look at it all going with board and batten on the right side also?
I mean, we have no objections so what you're doing is you're sort of bookending the two and then the original.
That's kind of what I,
And accentuating
Right.
then.
accentuating the existing
Yeah.
versus the
Yeah, I mean,
new.
we have no
I mean,
objections to looking at that at all.
I could see it both ways, actually. I do like I assume in A, above the initial roof line,
That's all clapboard or.
That's
or-
clapboard
yeah,
above that, yeah,
And also into the dormer as well, but this is all
Yeah.
board and batten into
yeah.
there. Right.
And on the north side, I can't remember what we did.
Well, on the north side, it's all horizontal lap siding as well. And then Actually, Michael, sorry, could you go to A with the 4 solutions? Or the
Four
four
elevations?
elevations? Yeah, 4 elevations of A. Oh, there you go, you just had it. Right? Yeah, so that you see from, so this window, and this window are all existing, being repurposed. This is vaulted space for this interior, and then this is a bathroom area on the back side. But to your point, board and batten certainly would,
You could wrap it around the back and you have an inside corner
Right.
to go into, right?
Right.
well, I
Or
would
is that
just,
in the
I
same
would take
plan?
it all the way through and then die into,
Yeah.
right, to your point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
an inside corner to get,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a
And
nice-
above the second floor, it just,
That's a
Well, we could
nice
just do a
idea.
skirt and then do
Yeah.
horizontal lap, I mean.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if this was my house, and it isn't, I would like the roof line in concept C, because the window that is, well, let's see, how do I, the space that is between the original house and the garage, that window there, I think, makes less of an impact than the window that's up in elevation A. So it would make the roof line somewhat simpler, I think. But that's just my point of view.
Now, I mean, to that end, we could look at, I do have issues with light and ventilation for this piece, because that's a bedroom. In this scheme, it's a laundry room. In this scheme, it's a bedroom.
I see.
I could actually look at a smaller dormer to minimize its impact, so that it's smaller, but that the window meet light and vent, and obviously egress, but all that stuff. I could certainly include that in our iteration that would be for permit.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
no,
right.
it'd be,
Well,
that would certainly be
But
sort of a happy medium.
how do you feel about that?
I do like the smaller, on C, that
Yeah.
smaller window
Oh,
for the
you
dormer,
do,
but
as well.
it's function, so you have to have the glass so much, but yeah,
Yeah.
the dormer, that makes no difference to me, it's just,
Here's where it gets
I don't
weird.
wanna have that option where we have to the front dormer turn into a, newer window, cause I've seen those and they're okay, but, then it's not gonna match the other dormer, so
I
it's gonna
see.
be, that's more of my concern.
I see,
Cause one of those two rooms would be the laundry room or a bedroom.
Right.
I see.
But whichever room is the bedroom has to have, that's the only window is,
Right.
so it
Yes,
has to be bigger.
yes.
Why a little shed window there and not just another dormer?
This one?
Yeah.
That's the laundry room. And the way that room is actually configured, the roof line starts way out here. So it's down here. In this scheme, notice the roof line starts higher, so I can bring the pitch up. Here, it's starting way lower, so the wall comes way in. So that it's only a little laundry room behind you. That's why, I mean, I could cut one in if you want.
Okay, so it's higher.
Yeah, it's
okay.
higher intentionally
Yeah.
because the wall has to start
Okay.
way far into the house.
I see,
it.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the plate height is so low,
Yeah.
it's got to
Okay.
take off.
Sean,
Gymnastics now, sorry.
I'm going to ask a question here, but, which I don't try to do in these, but in the upper right corner on an original, whoops, why is it doing this to me tonight?
Yeah, when I see all your other ones, the dormers seem to be pretty much standard kind of.
The upper right one shows a treatment that you don't see on most Cape Cods, but this is an original treatment.
Inverted dormer.
Yeah, I don't know
Oh,
if that would,
yes.
Dormer,
I don't know if
inverted
that would
dormer.
assist you in any of your designs, but I thought I would at least point out that is a historic detail.
Yeah.
Yep.
We lived in a Cape Cod in Oak Park many years ago, and that's what we had on the second floor.
That's
Yeah.
a water
Did it leak?
collection.
Thank you.
No, no, it did not.
It looks like it's gonna leak to me.
Mr. Practical.
Well,
Snow
okay.
piling up in
I
there.
wouldn't suggest-
Ours didn't.
I wouldn't suggest it in most places, but where you were trying to talk in
Yeah.
that little recess where it's
Yes.
fairly protected, you're trying to get more light, I would just threw that out there as
Yeah.
something.
What's going on here?
It's definitely an option,
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, our
One or two.
teenage daughters liked to crawl out the window and sit on the roof. They thought that was just great.
Yeah.
It was just a thought as you were talking.
Thank you.
And trying to figure out light.
Go
Okay.
back to the 4 elevations if you could. The one thing I don't like about C, well, I think I don't like the double shed roofs on either side of the,
Right.
I think that even brings more prominence to that gable
Right.
at the end.
Yeah, that,
And that's just,
Yeah.
I think that's just a little,
And that was a head height thing for the inside.
I am
wasn't
sure it
so
is.
that's
Yeah,
why-
yeah, that, I'm sure, I understand completely.
But that's why then A, we're like, okay, this is kind of the in-between.
Yeah.
You have the head height without having that
yeah.
Yes,
dormer in the way and.
yeah. I would really, it's too bad you couldn't drop the ridge line of the connector between the garage and that more. But I
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
understand you're right where you probably have to be.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're, especially if you're taking off from there, going all the way back
This would
to
not-
that garage, back to that stair, right?
Right. Yeah, so you already have figured out my section, so I'll send
Yeah,
them to you. You
exactly.
draw them for me, please, because
Yeah.
I'm dreading it.
It is, you probably have 4,000 wall sections in this thing.
I just might, yeah. But
Yeah.
it'll be fun to draw up.
Yeah, well,
So, just to kind of summarize, maybe, so, a couple things, maybe reducing this dormer size, so
Yeah.
that it looks a little smaller and more in keeping
Right.
with things. Maybe look at doing a vertical siding, treatment on the north addition, and let that wrap so that it's consistent around the north
Yeah.
side. Beyond that, were there, again, our general tendency is to go with A, and we'd, the front entry piece. So, do we have any issues with that? I know, it was a lot bigger before, and we kept shrinking it down at Michael's recommendation, and this is about as small as it gets for a door, and somebody to get into it, and then take their coat off, so,
Yeah.
okay.
I think it's appropriate to the scale of the original
Good.
box, if you will. I think it also, that's the same pitch as the dormers, right?
It's very, actually, very close to that, you're right,
Yeah.
yeah. Matter of fact, I may have very well just used those, yeah.
Yeah,
Which works nicely.
yeah, it does.
Well, this helps us immensely, so
Yeah, I
thank you
think-
for your time.
I think you're good.
Yeah,
And I
Well,
think
no,
we all appreciate your willingness to tweak the project.
Yeah. I
Thank
I
you.
have No problem, different thing, we've been working on this since April.
Well, and Matt's been really great about saying, well, let's try another idea, so it's been really a good back and forth.
With emphasis, though, from my
Please.
perspective, to keep that original elevation, the main building, if you would, as prominent as possible.
Fine.
And that's what we did with
Yeah.
all of our planning.
Yeah, well, and originally B and D, I kind of gravitated towards that, but that there's so much similarity in those that it is important, I think, to differentiate the two additions, modifications from that, but that building needs the prominence it deserves.
Thank you.
Great.
thank you.
Good. All right, we'll see you shortly.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Okay,
So
with that, I think we have one more building permit review
that was
at 218 Peyton Street.
Yep.
Chairman Zelmer, at this time, I would like to formally introduce our Assistant Planner, Matt Busing, who's joined our staff here at the City of Geneva. And Matt is going to present 218 Peyton Street this evening.
Great, thank you.
Bringing in the ringer here. All right, so we got 218 Payne Street, case number 2022-060, and then this is going to be a permit review for a proposed rear addition at a contributing property. We have the applicant Matthew Meyer and then the architect Sean Gallagher, who we just heard from. Now, this property is located in the northeastern quadrant of the local Geneva Historic District. See it marked there. We have a couple pictures here just kind of showing the existing conditions, showing the different elevations you can see from the public right-of-way. On the bottom right there, you can see kind of it's a rear detached garage. And then this is just kind of a little fun note about the property. It was moved to this address. I believe it was in the spring of 1997. Yeah, April 1997. It was relocated to this property, or to this site. So here we have a couple site plans, just kind of showing the existing and then the proposed conditions here. So on the left, we have the existing site plan. In the yellow, you can see the existing dwelling, and then the blue is going to be the existing porch and deck. The green in the rear is going to be that detached garage. On the right, again, the yellow and the blue are the same, and then the red is going to be the new two-story addition with an attached garage. And again, here is floor plan, kind of same color scheme, just to kind of, show you guys what exactly is being proposed here. And then here we have the front elevation of the property. You can see, if we go here, exactly, again, this is the addition in the red that's going to be proposed. Just kind of, it's a small portion that you actually see from the front. You can see, a portion of the attached garage, and then on the right, you can see a small portion. I will note, when Michael and I went out to the property, and there is some vegetation there that kind of actually blocks that from view. You obviously don't get that with an elevation drawing, but when you go to the property, it is kind of actually blocked that right portion. Here's just a couple, things to notice or to note. The windows here circled on the left, those are kind of historic window components that are going to remain. And then in the top right, the top window, that's going to be a window. It's going from a single to a double, so just kind of make note of that. And then the bottom window as well, that's going to be historic to remain. And then just kind of notifying also that the garage is going to be demolished and then converted into an attached garage with the addition. And here we have some of the side elevations here. We got the east and west elevations. And then again, the circled window there, that one is going from a single to a double.
Okay. It's on the east.
Here are just kind of some examples of the materials that they are proposing to use for the windows and doors. And then these are just also some of the materials for the siding and trim, and then as well as the asphalt shingles on the roof.
Could you go back, please, so that from the street and looking down the driveway and the existing, how much of the garage we can see now? All right, that's on the lower right-hand side. But the new garage, how much of that will we still be able to see? About the same or less?
So it's fairly similar. I think
Similar?
Sean can speak to exactly
Okay.
how much, but I mean,
I would say
it's a small
almost
portion.
identical.
Almost identical? Okay.
Yeah.
Could you identify yourselves? If you would, thank you.
Sure. My name's Matthew Mayer. I'm the homeowner of 218
Great.
Peyton Street.
Thanks for coming, and we know Sean.
Great. Well, it's good to see everyone again. I know that this is the second time we've been presenting this project, and really there's been some pretty minor adjustments, nothing really to the front elevation of the home. There's been some pretty positive, outside of the design plan, revelations or progress, I guess is probably a better way to put it, that I have engaged the State Historic Preservation for their initial findings or their initial approval, so we've gotten that on phase one. They've deemed the home as being historic, and they've said that the project is approved for further review, and that's kind of why we're in the building permit stage, in order to get that kind of going, and then we'll be able to present them. These are the renovations that we're going to be doing. This is where we're going to be making improvements, or we're going to be sustaining the existing home that's shown here in gray. Also, we've kind of cut away a little piece of the back. It's all aluminum siding right now. So that was kind of a fun little Christmas present to open up on the back side of the house. We cut a small section of the siding off And we were able to see that there's actually existing siding that remains underneath. So that's going to be the plan, is to remove all of the aluminum siding on the existing home and then restore and then repaint
Wow.
the previous siding that's underneath. So
Good for you.
yeah, hopefully, the small section that we took out looks like it's in pretty good shape as it is. Hopefully that is consistent throughout, but to be determined at this stage in the game. But that's the plan moving forward, is to restore that back to its original form. So,
And I was gonna mention that the lap on it is 2 3/4, so it's a tight little lap. So it's always exciting for these unveilings to see what condition things are. It also makes you super nervous, right? So, and when the house was moved, Michael, was it aluminum sided? It looked as though the lap on that when it was moved was the big lap. Do you know?
I believe it had been sided by the time it was moved.
So the longer it's been there, the better that is for us, so.
yeah, but pretty, like Sean said, it's a pretty unique lapping that, in my recollection of most of the homes around the neighborhood, I don't know of any others that have that narrow or that tight of a lap, or few and far between. So, so we're excited about the project and hopeful that we can get your support for it moving forward, and hopefully I can obtain the state's support moving forward as well, and obtain that tax freeze that is be beneficial.
So you are applying for the tax
Correct.
assessment freeze?
Correct.
Wonderful. Okay.
So, yep, again, we've gotten there's multiple phases to the approval process. I've submitted and gotten the first phase's approval, which is really just kind of acknowledging that it's within a historic district and that it's a historic home, and that we can proceed moving forward with the process. So,
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, sir?
Sean, would you address the windows, because I think that's a pretty interesting and important point, what you're doing with the windows and what the condition they are now?
Oh, yeah, so the existing windows are replacement units that, when they were installed, they may have been installed in out-of-square openings, but there are a lot of them that don't close well, and so they're drafty, and so those are going to be replaced altogether, and talking with Tom Wetmore, there'll be new replacement units that'll go in, jam and all, into the openings, so that the size of the unit will match the existing. So we are going to be restoring, I think, Matt, you had mentioned a couple of the ones that we'll be restoring, existing ones that we'll be restoring. Those are the only existing windows in the house. So we'll be fixing those up, restoring those, and then all the other ones, which are replacement units, will be replaced with new units that go into a square opening. So, was there something I missed on that?
No, I just wanted the commission to be very clear that
Sure.
there's not a traditional, it's
Right.
not a window unit being placed in the historic jam. The jams have been kind of messed up with these replacement windows, and like I said, they're out of square, so they're taking the entire jam and putting a whole new unit in and replacing the historic trim back, so it will not at all diminish the size of the windows.
Yeah, because the replacement units, then you do jam liners, and then the unit gets a little smaller, so then, it just it makes the opening look smaller than it was originally.
One question about the windows, after I was thinking about this after you submitted, was, have you been able to find any historic photographs through the church?
the only photos we were able to get were of the move, which were fun to look at, but again, it had the aluminum siding already on it, and all of the windows were intact as they are today. So there was no real historic.
You're asking about muntins, probably, right?
Right.
Is there any historic evidence of muntins? But the historic windows that are there currently have no muntins either, so.
It wasn't the muntins on the majority of the house. I was wondering if those windows on the porch at that entry
Oh.
foyer, if they were decorative of some sort, if they showed up in a picture.
Oh.
It would just be, the double hungs there are kind of unusual for that period rather than some kind of
Here
decorative.
again, here's where the adventure happens, when you strip the siding off.
Yeah.
Were those taller? Is the stair there originally, right? Because that's why they might be kind of higher up. So, we'll see, knock on wood, what happens, but yeah.
Michael, did we see this house maybe 10 years ago?
No, well, I didn't see it 10 years ago, because I wasn't here 10 years ago.
Oh,
But,
okay.
but it was several months ago when they
Well-
first brought this project forward.
No, yes, that I remember, but I remember a friend that lived, is there next door to you, do you have another house that looks very much like this to the east, or?
Kind of Italianate, right?
The one to the east is one that came forward several years ago.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking
It's a
of.
gray house now with a teal door, and then to the west is a four-square,
Okay.
if I
So-
remember correctly.
And the Italianate sort of looking house was yellow at the time.
Yes, it
Okay.
started out yellow.
That's the house I'm thinking of. Sorry.
And across the street from this house is the one that the Giampolis picked up and did the
Yeah.
foundation under.
Okay.
That was, Chris Rosati was the architect on the one. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
If no further questions, we'll go ahead and sit down, or?
We're gonna make you stand for a while.
Yeah. Want to go to the, can you go to the plan? Floor plans? So. Yeah, there. So you're coming in, you do have relief between the yellow and the red, right, at the top?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course, and that's always good because the house usually isn't plumb to start with, right? But
Yeah,
then
exactly.
It also makes a distinction between what is original and what is new. Yeah.
Okay. A little bit of a break, right? Do you come back out the same amount, or are you coming out, looks like you're coming out even more, but
I'm
you're so
cheating out
far
about a
back.
foot beyond, that's why you see in the front elevation that slice
Catch,
of
catch.
red. Yeah, just a
Yeah,
little slice of
okay.
red.
Is it just fitting? You can't slide that?
That is a Swiss watch in there.
Okay, gotcha. You're on it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
I'll just share this too, which is interesting. So this district is unique. Okay, so when you get other houses like this, the district is called mixed high-density residential. So the rules that apply to this lot and several of the lots along here are much more liberal.
Oh.
So this house, let me get the facts on this one. We could make the house another 1,400 square foot bigger.
Wow.
Oh, my.
Because what governs this site is lot coverage and height, and then the setbacks, that's it. So in other districts, there are things like building area and the 20-foot line, the 28-foot line, all that stuff. That's all different in this district, which is really neat for folks like, the mayors that want to do a sizable addition, but you could do a lot bigger project here than what's here, in part because the high density, and the city wanted to encourage, more folks in the downtown area. So that was, I believe, the rationale for David and the team in the city to pursue that. So, and I just thought that
Is
is
it
interesting.
considered a multifamily? You could do a multifamily on that spot?
You can, yep. In fact, when you look at the zoning diagram, there's a nice illustration showing kind of a duplex unit that's sort of stacked on the site with two.
Sure.
Yeah, so, yep.
Just one family here, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing, I actually, my house, I have a addition that I put on that was it's a mother-in-law suite above, which was difficult to get through the city in the zoning that I'm in, but would not be difficult here.
Right. Well, there you go.
Okay, well,
Anything else?
Okay.
what's it? If I could get a motion to approve, everyone,
I so move for the approval of the plans as presented, 218 Peyton Street, Geneva.
in a second?
I second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Dennison.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Stason.
Aye.
Zenke.
Aye.
Zelver.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sean. Bravo. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Always a treat to see you.
Okay, next is a item on our agenda is the secretary's report.
Well, first, I'd just like to say that I don't know what to make of it, that the staff person here, who's been here the longest, has a very long project, and the new guy comes in and gets a case through really quickly, so
Yeah.
go from that. Appreciate it. Anyway, Secretary's report, a couple of just very quick things. I promised you that the next couple of agendas would probably be heavy, and so tonight was a longer meeting than usual, and I would prepare yourselves for September because we already have 2 cases and we're a long way from the deadline. So I suspect that September will be a busy month.
What's the date on September's meeting? The 20?
September 20th?
20th, yeah, I believe.
The other thing that we have is that we postponed the election of a vice chairperson at our last meeting because the 2 of the people who expressed interest were not present, and we thought it would only be fair to do an election if all 3 of the people who were interested were present. So I don't know if any of you want to make any impassioned brief speeches why you're interested in being vice chair, but if not.
Come on, George, let's hear from you.
But wait, don't you think we should wait for Don and Lisa to be here?
Yeah, I don't know whether we can wait for,
If you would like, we can wait till September. We've waited this long to have a vice chair, but you just have to promise me we're going to have a quorum in September.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
I really don't know.
You don't.
Uh-oh. We
So-
better
Well,
vote.
I have many review conferences coming in September, and I know that in Florida, but I can definitely try to make sure that I'm here.
In Florida, huh? So you're going to take a little side trip to Disney World, huh?
No, I'm going to the Panhandle in Panama City.
Wow. Panama
Tyndall
City.
Air Force Base. We're rebuilding Tyndall Air Force Base.
Oh,
Sounds gorgeous.
I worked on that decade.
Nice and hot.
It is hot.
yeah.
If that's the case, if you'd like to wait till full contingent is here, I will put that off for another month, but I would suggest that regardless of what happens in September, that we do handle this in September only
Okay.
because we have had, with Paul's travel, we have had 3 meetings in the last 15 months that we've had to have a vice chair. So.
Right, okay.
Okay, I have nothing else unless any of the commissioners have questions for me about anything. I don't know if I want to ask that.
Yeah. Well, we could just go on and move to new business and ask you questions at that time.
I don't have any questions, Michael, just to clarify that.
Okay.
Me neither.
Okay, any new business from the commission? Nope. Or did you have a comment?
No, I was gonna move for adjournment.
Oh, we got one more after that. Any, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, okay. Any comments, any new business from the public here? Very good,
I promise to be brief, really.
okay.
It's
Could you
okay, Al, you waited all night.
Yeah.
state your name if you would again?
Al Watts, Community Engagement Director of Preservation Partners of the Fox Valley.
Great.
I just want to bring up a couple of quick things. I don't know if I mentioned this recently, but what's come to my attention, it's not in this district, but it's come to my attention that the Elgin National Watch Historic District may be de-landmarked. So it's just something
Really?
to be aware of. The word that I've received is that a lot of the owners of the properties there are absentee owners and are not fixing up their properties, and the prevailing thought is that maybe if we don't have it as a landmark district anymore, they will fix up their rental properties. So that's the word on the street, just so you are aware of that. And then the other thing is some planning I'm doing for next year that I just appreciate a little bit of your input on. One of the things that I'm tasked with doing is bringing education to the Fox Valley about historic preservation. In June, I invited all the planners, such as Michael, and then the economic and community directors to come and learn about what's something that Michael could probably give a tutorial on, but the rest of them maybe didn't know as much about, which was all the different tax incentives that are available, such as what the one family is already going to be looking at doing for a property tax freeze, and also learning about the federal and state tax incentives. So in that regard, I'm looking at doing some additional things in the next year. They cost money that a nonprofit is not able to provide all of. So I kind of just wanted a little bit of feedback, and you don't have to tell me today. We can talk about it another time, but I just want to throw it out there. The two things that I'm looking at is one is from an organization called Place Economics, PLACE Economics. They are experts in analyzing the impact of historic preservation. Their primary, the owner is Donovan Ripkema. He's been involved in the economics of historic preservation for decades. We can bring in one of their principals and have a discussion with the public and or people such as yourselves about the value of historic districts. So what I want to do is I want them to do two talks, one on the commercial district benefits and one on the residential district benefits, because then I get one person, two talks, saves us money. That one's not terribly expensive, but the other one that I'm looking at is through the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, which I know Michael is a member of. In fact, he's the reason that I'm a member of it. But they do a lot of workshops for best practices for commissions and things like that. And they charge a decent amount to bring their experts out. They can do anywhere from 1 to 7 seminars in a day. They cost between $50 to $250 a person. So my thought is to try to pick like 3 of their 7 topics, bring 2 of their experts out, and invite primarily the commissioners from the different 3 different cities here, and also probably just do that because that it gets kind of expensive when you get to a larger group. But that would require some money to come from probably the cities or the chambers of commerce or something like that. I assume you guys don't have like a budget per se, but I know that it's possible that we can ask. There's potential that we could ask to have a budget item that then would be able to afford for some of you guys to come. So, do you have?
If I can interject on both
Sure.
your points there
Yes.
with the 2 speaking engagements, I believe Carolyn was the only member on the commission when we had the camp program come in from the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. You were here too? Okay, I couldn't remember when you came on. So we did do a camp several years ago. In 2015, it was very, very beneficial. We invited others in. What I would suggest that I don't remember if St. Charles is a certified local government, CLG. I know Batavia is not.
Batavia is not, St. Charles is.
So there is the potential, if you're looking at bringing that in, that either we could jointly apply for certified local government grant for education, and that we could defray a lot of the costs. That's how we paid for it last time. I think it was a very nominal fee to come once we did that grant. And the other thing I would say with Donovan Ripkema, if none of you are familiar with him, or if you are familiar with him, he has just recently completed a whole new study on the impact of historic preservation on real estate values, and he's been publishing those in some briefs in the last couple of months. So he's got some very cutting edge information that has been just coming out in the last few months. So
And that would be really great to know and have, because so many times my neighbors comment about how they're glad that they're not in a historic district, because it would cost them so much more to live there.
yeah, it's some really interesting information. It's again, it's a little bit different than what was being produced 10, 15 years ago. The responses and it's or the information, and so both of those would be very worthwhile, or either one. But I just want to let you know that if you're not familiar with his Place Economics website, he's got some of those studies, the briefs published on there, and it's really some pretty cutting edge, cool stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I tend to bring some of that resources to our website and share that out there. It's a process. Donovan Rooker, I have communicated with him to have him come out. His fee was a little higher than our board was comfortable with, but obviously if there's another funding source we can have, then we can have him come out. But there is, he has a local office in Chicago, and I have met with the person that's there, and she's very knowledgeable and she can do a good job too. So
Okay.
anyway, if if that's something you don't have anything to do with, that's great, just let me know. If it's something you might be interested in, that's great, and, then I can pursue that grant. I would need to work with Batavia, I think, because I don't think they're at SLG. But I know what needs to be done with that there. So, but that's all great ideas for me, so.
Great.
Anybody have any questions about anything else? I don't know how long you want me to stay up here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, can I get a motion to adjourn? What's it?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.